Is lying wrong? Is killing another being wrong? I would assume that most people would answer yes to both these questions, but what if you killed someone out of self-defense? Then is it wrong? Our morals mold our opinions and actions, but morals are complex ideas. Moral relativism and moral absolutism are two elaborate ideas that shape a person's moral values. A relativist believes that not all laws are concrete. They think that morals are ever changing and that there is not one definite way to approach all situations. They think that situations vary based on events, which means there cannot be one single way of approaching them. On the other hand, absolutists think there is only one concrete way to approach all circumstances. Throughout Kreeft's book, A Refutation of Moral Relativism, Libby, Issa, and Kreeft argue the components of moral relativism and moral absolutism and try to argue which of the two is most morally correct. Once my speech is concluded, the audience will be able to compare the advantages and disadvantages of moral absolutism and moral relativism and be able to decide which one they think is most morally correct. Despite moral relativism and moral absolutism being complicated and intricate topics, I will use this speech to discuss the many aspects and views within both moral beliefs. I'm first going to talk about moral relativism. My first argument is that morals are shaped by society. There are many different societies throughout the world and within one nation, and they all have different beliefs. There's no way to prove that one society's beliefs are greater than another's, so they all are equal, even though they are different. An example of this is cannibalism. In the United States, cannibalism is greatly looked down upon. People think it is really wrong to eat another human, dead or alive, but this is not the case in all societies. In other countries, such as New Guinea, it is totally fine to consume a dead carcass of another being. They actually think that it is right, and that when someone you know dies, that you should consume their body. These are two very differing viewpoints, but they are both right because there's no way to prove that one of them is wrong. Both countries are both equals in terms of morals, so both their moral values and viewpoints are correct. That being said, morals are relative because you cannot define one as superior to the other, so they cannot be absolute, and they are always differing between societies. My second argument is that morals are developed through one's culture. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines culture as customary beliefs, social forms, material traits of racial, religious, or social groups. By this definition, there are many different cultures within one country, and with that, many more throughout the whole entire world. With that comes many differing viewpoints, but again, you cannot say that one culture is superior to another. They are all equal, so all their moral values must be equal too, even if they are different. An example of this is the restrictions that certain religions have on foods. For example, Buddhists are vegetarians because in their religion, one of their moral beliefs is that they cannot harm other living things. So they cannot kill an animal for food since that is harming them. But other religions, such as Catholic, don't have strict dietary restrictions, and they can eat whatever they want because it doesn't say that they cannot harm living things. So you cannot say that one culture is superior to another and that one is right in the sense of whether they can or cannot kill living things and whether they are allowed to tell people that they can or cannot. This shows how cultures are different and they have different views, and that you cannot have one moral belief since cultures impact morals. Another example of culture is different generations. I'm going to insert here a graph which has the beliefs of moral issues by generation, and these show different cultures because each generation is a different culture because you're raised with different beliefs of that time period. This shows that morals are always changing and that they're not absolute, and that you can't say they're always concrete, because just by this, generations are changing and people have different ideas. My third argument is that morals are built around situations. The outcome of different situations varies based on events, so it causes like morals to sway. So this means that you can't have like a definite moral, because no two situations are exactly the same, so you can't abide by that same moral for everything. So an example of this is like overall people believe that killing is wrong. That is like a moral that almost everyone can agree with. But there are occasions where it is permissible to kill someone. For example, in self-defense. An example of this is Sitonia Brown. She was a victim of sex trafficking and abuse, and at the age of 16, she killed her abuser. So in this case, most people would agree that it was just and it was okay that she killed her attacker because it was out of self-defense. She was trying to get out of this situation that was abusive and awful. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, she did kill a person, and that is morally wrong. But because of the situation and the events and the details behind it, it is seen as all right, which is why morals are relative based on situations. Although moral relativism has strong supporting arguments, moral absolutism is also a concrete viewpoint. Moral absolutism, as defined before, states that all morals must be concrete and cannot change no matter the circumstance. My first argument is that morals produce consequences, and only positive consequences can come from a society that has moral absolutism. Moral absolutism gives you one concrete way of living, and there are no flexibility within the laws, unlike in moral relativism. This means that people are more likely to abide by laws and follow the rules, which would give them positive consequences. In a society that has moral relativism, since the morals are not concrete and they change based on situation, people are more likely to break the rules, and then there's going to be more chaos within a society. An example of this is Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was a serial killer who killed many, many women, and he believed that it was okay, and he got away with it for a while, but eventually he had a negative consequence. But it did also have a really big effect on society, and that would not have happened if one were to follow moral absolutism, because they would have never believed that it was okay to do it. My second point is morals need to be livable. A livable moral is one that is sustainable by every human being, and everyone needs to follow it. In relativism, morals sway between different people, and there are different exceptions, so it is not livable by every human. So an example of this would be committing murder. It is livable by every human being because you do not need to do it. There is no reason why you would have to commit murder, so it is right to say that murder is wrong and that no one should ever commit it, and that is an absolute moral. My third argument is that if relativism were true, then people would not be arguing about absolutism because it would not matter. And by arguing about absolutism, you are proving that relativism isn't true because you are trying to find a concrete answer. You are trying to say that one is wrong and one is right, and that is absolute. So by default, then you are saying that absolutism does exist. Moral relativism and moral absolutism both have their own strengths and flaws, which makes both moral values good despite being so different. Now that you have learned the foundations of both moral values, you are able to compare them. The elaborate description that I have provided of these two morals allows one to examine moral absolutism and moral relativism and identify with one of these moral beliefs.